Does your business provide a quality service or product? If the answer is yes, then there is a combination of tactics that can be customized to fit your unique business that makes your business super profitable, creates wealth, and makes a difference in the process. I know this because I've built a few tiny businesses to more than $70 million. You're listening to the Entrepreneurs Radio Show. Conversations with self-made millionaires and high-level entrepreneurs that will grow your business. Hey, it's Travis Lane Jenkins. Welcome to episode number 122 of the Entrepreneurs Radio Show, a production of RockstarEntrepreneurNetwork.com. Today I'm going to introduce you to Simon T. Bailey. Now, Simon is a brilliant man on many levels, on top of being a complete blast to spend some time with. Before we get started, I want to say a quick thank you to Phil Olson from the UK for writing a review on iTunes and giving us a 5-star rating. The review, Phil said, or in the review, he said, this was a first business entrepreneur podcast that I've listened to, and any others now have a lot to live up to. Fantastic show. He especially enjoyed a specific episode that he's referring to. He highly recommends. Phil, thank you, my friend, for the great feedback and taking the time to write the review. Just as a reminder, in case you don't know, writing a review does help us reach more entrepreneurs just like yourself. So if you have time and you do find value in the show, go ahead and leave us a review at iTunes or Stitcher and let me know how we're doing. And then, of course, I'll read your review and thank you on air. One last thing before we get started. There's three easy ways to take these interviews with you on the go while you're driving or working out, which is iTunes, Android, or Stitcher. Just go to RockstarEntrepreneurNetwork.com. Look right there on the menu, and all three of those are on the menu for you to click on. Take you directly to the show. You won't have to look them up or anything. So now that we've got all that stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and get down to business. What do you say? Without further ado, welcome to the show, Simon.
Hey, glad to be with you.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Hey, do you mind giving us you've got an interesting backstory. Do you mind sharing that backstory with us?
Yeah, grew up in Buffalo, New York. Go Bills, this could be the year. Sorry, had to get that plug in for Buffalo. And,
don't worry, I'll edit that out. No, I'm just kidding.
So, grew up in Buffalo, went to school in Atlanta. My parents called me after my freshman year in college, said, we don't have the money to send you back for your sophomore year, nor do we have money to bring you back home to Buffalo, but we do love you. And so I dropped out of school, moved into a drug-infested community, though I was not on drugs. It's all I could afford at the time. Got a job at a hotel making $5.10 an hour. You know the story. I eventually did go back to school, was on the 10-year plan. Took me 10 years to finish my undergrad and graduate degree, and then eventually got on with Disney and decided to leave Disney to go out on my own about well over 11 years ago.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, and you had a pretty successful career at Disney. So what possessed you to leave a successful career and venture out onto your own? That's kind of a dangerous move, right?
So the backstory is I got a call one day from a journalist from Florida Business Trend magazine. Right. And whenever you work at Disney, Mickey Mouse rule number one is you never talk to the media unless authorized. Well, I wasn't authorized, and I decided to talk to the guy. So he said to me, where do you see yourself 10 to 15 years from now? And I said, I see myself as a president and CEO of the Walt Disney World Resort and eventually the chairman and CEO of the Walt Disney Company. And he puts it in print.
Did that get you in trouble?
True story, dude, did it get me in trouble? Man, my boss calls me in the office because the article comes out, page 12, Florida Business Trend magazine. And in fact, you still Google it to this day. And my boss calls me in the office. He's like, dude, what were you thinking when you did this interview? And I said, Larry, I work at this company whose motto is, if your heart is in your dreams, no request is too extreme. For when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are, but obviously it does here. And it's funny today. Travis, is funny today, but it was not funny back then.
It's much funnier now, right?
Oh, my goodness. So I got a call from one of the senior vice presidents who reported directly to the president, and the senior VP was my mentor, sponsor, the guy that really looked out for me. And he's like, dude, you are about to be toast. He said, do you need me to go to the president on you? And I was like, nah, I'll be fine. And so human resources showed up. About an hour later, asked me to sign a piece of paper that went into my personnel file. And they didn't fire me right away that day. But let's just say I heard the footsteps come in about a year later, and I thought it was probably my best interest to leave on my own accord.
Well, that stinks, because like you said, if that's their motto, and they run a really great business. I mean, they're incredible for customer service and stuff. So that surprises me.
Yeah, I think it was just some of the senior leadership at that time that I reported up to that was a little bit miffed. So, right. Yeah.
So tell me about the transition. How smooth was it for you going from the corporate world to eating what you kill, the manner of speaking? It's kind of a dangerous thing because, you're obviously making pretty decent money here. How do you make that transition, and how long before it became a successful venture for you?
So the transition actually was not bad because what I realized, I had started creating my exit strategy about a year as soon as everything happened. So about a year out, I started working on the strategy of like, okay, I got to do something. And I floated a resume out on the street, got 4 job offers and turned them all down because what I decided to do is make a list of relationships that I had built over about a 15 to 18 year period. Mm-hmm. And I had a list of about 75 names. And so when I hung out my shingle February 1st, 2003, I just started dialing and say, hey, here's what I'm doing now. I can do consulting, training. And I didn't make it past name 25 before the phone started ringing. So it took about 6 months, for me to kind of get on my feet. And I told my wife that I said, hey, we got 2 years to make a go of this. And within 6 months, we were off and running. And it was probably the best decision I ever made to become an entrepreneur and to go out on my own.
Oh, it's fulfilling on a whole new level, isn't it?
Totally. Because for us, there was no plan B. It had to work.
Right. Well, I think what I like about this story is, and what I perceive from my side, is not only did you have the hustle and the foresight to plan this out, but also I think a lot of that quick transition was based on more than likely the integrity and the relationships that you'd built in past, and people knew that you could be trusted and that you were an asset, right? Is that a fair analysis?
Totally. Yeah, totally. And people believed in my brand.
Right. And so it's very easy to hire someone when they believe in you and they know that things are going to get done. Even if it's a new venture and it's a little shaky starting out, if the person is highly trusted, then, that puts all of those fears and just the common concerns that prevent sales to rest, right?
Totally. And it's so interesting you say that because I realize it even now. Relationships are the currency of the future. I would not be able to do what I'm doing now if I didn't have relationships in place.
Right.
Really.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we're in an interesting time to where there's an opportunity for 1,000 Oprahs, instead of one Oprah or one Howard Stern or, whatever your slant, whatever your thing is, with technology and with everything that's going on, there's an opportunity for so many sub niches these days now that you really can build a following and some incredible relationships. And the more relationships you have, the more financial success you normally tend to have.
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of a hand-in-hand thing.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that.
So take me through the transition beyond, once you get things up and running, how do you scale the business, and what were kind of the turning points for you that made the business successful at a higher level?
What I clearly realized is that there's only so many days on the calendar that I could be on the road speaking.
Right.
So what we quickly, and this is something I learned at Disney, people were coming to Disney Institute where I was the sales director because of the content. So what I realized is I needed to take a book, hire an instructional designer who had a master's degree in instructional design, and we took the book and blew it out into a half-day, full-day curriculum. And then we had to go and find trainers who we could teach our methodology. And we had an opportunity come up within the first year of me being in business from a hospital that wanted me to help them with their patient satisfaction training. And so we literally went in and got a 3-year contract with them, all because I quickly realized if we were going to scale, we needed to have 3 to 5 trainers on the bench that could help us do that while I was out working on other rainmaking activities.
I like that. And so you're focused on bringing in business, and you've got a team, or you're building out a team that's delivering the goods. And so it eliminates kind of that vicious cycle when you're just making money speaking. Is that right? Yeah,
correct. Correct. And we did that for a number of years, and then we did a rinse and repeat. We had another client showed up, and we were able, because we kept ownership of our intellectual property, we were able to repurpose it for another client. And for about 5 years straight, we had consulting deals lined up, and I was able to use the consulting examples of what we were doing real time as case studies in a lot of the keynote speaking that I was doing. And then the book just became a business card. And obviously we've written 7 books since then. But what I realized along the way, that the books were just a value add, just another revenue stream that we would sell into whatever we were doing.
Ah, clever. Yeah, this is what you're explaining is, from my perception, is a sales funnel.
Yeah, totally.
And it's really kind of a sales funnel before people think, before the vernacular of a sales funnel came along. And so who is your audience that you were selling to? It sounds like you have several different groups that you were selling to.
Yeah, so healthcare, banking finance was a huge area for us. Hospitality industry, believe it or not, was another area, just because of my 20 years of experience working for Disney and different hotel chains. Those were kind of like our 3 buckets that we played in, and that was very, very lucrative for us.
And so what were you teaching them?
So they would bring us in to, number one, do customer service training from literally the C-suite all the way down to the front line, depending on the size of the organization. And then after we did the customer service piece, what we quickly realized is a lot of times companies want to implement customer service, but where everything kind of falls apart is leadership has not bought into it. So we step back and say, before we do anything, we have to get buy-in with leadership. So we started doing leadership training. Then we went into team training. Then we got to the customer piece. So we moved the customer piece to the end because we had to make sure leadership and their team were all on the same page.
I like that. And I've had firsthand experience to where the customer service and the leadership are not bought in on the same thing, and it's a nightmare. Right?
It is.
It's 2 people speaking 2 different languages, And I've seen it in a multiple of situations, even when, software is being implemented into a business to try and improve customer relationships. And the customer service team doesn't want to make the change, right? And yet they don't come out and say that they don't want the change. They just do things to sabotage the scaling it up, right? And
you know it well. That's it. And you spend all your time chasing your tail trying to get everybody on the same page.
Right. Even down to griping, to cajoling, to threatening, to fire, and it's just, you've got to go to the core of it and get down to what the real issues are and try to get everybody on the same page. And it's really kind of a frustrating process unless you have somebody that understands how to get around those issues.
This is about 10 years ago when I was working with this one consulting client, and this is way before Undercover Boss, and I actually went undercover and worked in the hospital behind the scenes, and just to kind of get a feel for the culture. And so one day I was just back in the area working, and somebody said, well, if they want anything, they just go crying to Daddy, and Daddy gives them whatever they want. And I was like, who's Daddy? And they're like, Daddy's the president of the hospital. So I had to meet with the president on Monday, and I just gave the feedback, and I was like, you're Daddy, and whoever screams the loudest get what they want. And I said, you got to shut that down. That cannot work. Close the adult daycare center. And he was shocked, but he knew it was true. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times it's, and now I'm speaking from my personal experience, unfortunately, in my own business, when we had just built our business into this big monster where, some of the key people were the ones that decided that they were not going to let these changes happen. And although they wasn't telling anybody that, yet when meetings were over, they were immediately undermining everything that was going on. It was frustrating. It drove me crazy. And, it's the corporate world, and building a business that ends up becoming very corporate mindset is a complete different animal from growing a small business. We'd reached a level to where we had, we were a construction company in this specific industry, and we had more people in the office than we had out of the office, for a construction company.
Sure.
And just so the corporate posturing and things that happen is incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so I guess it just takes someone with your experience and level of understanding to know how to navigate these things. When you say training, the leadership and customer service training, how is it? I get the training and getting everyone on the same page. Can you go deeper and talk about how you actually manage to get people on the same page?
Yeah, so the first thing, when you start with leaders, every leader, he or she has their own agenda as to what they want to do, how they want to make their mark. So it's really understanding how they're wired, number one. Number two, once you understand where they're trying to go, you then have to say, how do you intend to get there? And what do you need? What's missing? How do we ensure that they have emotional intelligence? Because you're going to have really bright leaders, but they're emotionally clueless as to how do they connect with their team to really drive the results that they want. Mm-hmm. So you really have to spend a lot of time getting into their head to understand their mindset. Then the third thing you do with leaders at that executive level is then say, okay, here's what's in it for you. Because if they know how it's going to benefit them, then they're all on board. And helping them understand how it benefits them ties to performance, ties to obviously a bonus if they're bonus driven, but also ties into what's on the CEO mind and what's going to make them look good in front of that CEO. So it kind of becomes almost like reverse psychology, where you're helping them understand how to accomplish something as if it's their idea. And it's really influencing them in such a way where it doesn't come off contrived, it doesn't come off disingenuous, but it comes off as, here's what's going to help you be successful in this culture, and here's why we need for you to really step up, because everybody's looking to you for leadership. And then once we kind of get those things understood, we then have to work through, how is this leader in relationship with their peer leaders? Because you may have operations totally bought in, but they may not like the person in marketing or supply chain or customer service. So you got to make sure they're all cohesively speaking the same language, and they really want to support one another. And then finally, you then say, okay, here's how we would like to take it to your team. What do you think is the best way to disseminate this information? So you'll have some leaders that will say, I want to take my top 3 to 5 lieutenants, or my key lieutenants, or my key champions who really have my mindset, and I'd like for you to now spend some time with them, telling them here's what it is, here's where it's going. And what we generally do, we say, okay, we're not going to do it. We're going to have you stand up in front of them and you tell them why this is important to you. Because if I'm just the outside consultant saying, hey, here's where true north is, people are like, yeah, whatever. What does my leader say? So then we kind of script that leader and give them the talking points. They can put it into their own vernacular, right, to share it with their lieutenants. And then we say to their lieutenants, how do we roll this out to your team? What does it look like? And then all of a sudden what we discovered, where people have input, they take ownership of. Right. And now that they've had input into what this piece looks like, we then go forward to the next layer, and those are the people who are closest to the customer.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'd seen a really interesting study where they had these group of people, and they've done it with really large numbers of people, where they had them build some little small trinkety thing that was really kind of insignificant, but virtually everyone kept it because they created it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to the outside person that would see it, they would think, they would maybe think about throwing it away, but the people that created it coveted it, and
right.
it carried it with them. And
right.
that's a lot of the psychology of what you're talking about here, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And so now, what was your method for getting down to the core and figuring out what the leader or what the key people's motivations were?
Was, first of all, to find out their learning style. Secondly, find out their appreciation language. How do they like to be recognized? And then the third thing is to celebrate what they did right and coach what they did wrong. And focusing on just those three things really helps drive it into the organization and builds out the culture.
Oh, that's brilliant. Those three things are worth the price of admission of this whole interview here, is getting to, tactical ways to getting to the core of what makes someone tick. That's really brilliant.
Exactly. Exactly.
Looking back over the trajectory, because everything makes perfect sense in reverse, right? What was the moments, pivoting moments, or moments that really sent you and your business on the trajectory that you are now, that maybe you believe were the defining moments of your business, so that people could take and convey those lessons into their own situation?
Yeah, I think there were three defining moments. Number one, I got rejected by 13 New York publishers and LA publishers when I came out with my book, and I kind of took it personally, but then I just kind of let it go. And I realized that if I was going to get bigger, I had to get better. So I focused on getting better in the writing, better in delivery, better in whatever we were executing with customers. And as we got better, all of a sudden an opportunity presented itself where I was introduced to one relationship that connected me with all the publishers in the world. And now I came in because the person who introduced me had the leverage and the power. And they introduced me as the person that they believed in. And everybody fell in line and said, what do we need to do to give me a deal? So what I realized is you never take things personal. It's always about business. And how do you get better? That was probably one of the pivotal moments in business for me. The second one, there's a guy named Joel Novak who is a mentor to me. He's a former investment banker from Wall Street, did deals between $1 billion and $2 billion, Harvard MBA, Columbia law grad, special ops in the Marines, and he's 75 years of age, great guy. And he took me under his wing. And one of the things he constantly drilled in my head, he said, did I ever tell you about the Harvard case study? And a famous case study. I'm like, no, tell me about it. And he says, you know why the railroad industry never really dominated all of the industry? And I said, no, why did they miss it? He said, because they saw themselves in the railroad business. Thus, when the airline industry came along, the airline industry saw themselves in the transportation business. So he says, you have to look at your business and don't see yourself in the motivational speaking business. You're in the content distribution business. And how do you think about positioning what you do every day, every way, everywhere? And that little trigger, seeing myself as a content producer and not just being segmented, was just an interesting moment. And then probably the third thing that really became the opportunity for us, we had been talking with Microsoft for many years, and I had a relationship with them that even dates back some 20 years ago with a particular person. And we kept in contact with this person, and just, over a 20-year period, holiday cards, birthday cards, text messages here and there. And all of a sudden, we got a call from them within the last 6 months, and they said, listen, we're having our Microsoft Worldwide Partners Conference, 12,000 of our best customers from 136 nations. We would like for you to come and be one of our key individuals that shares, your expertise on emerging leadership. And we went, and that one opportunity has now opened up several opportunities globally. We got connected to some other people in the technology space, and one of the ideas that came out of that was, how do we begin to look at what we offer in a micro content format and digitize it and begin to leverage different platforms? And it was just the thing about perseverance, and you never know what a relationship would lead to. Those would be three moments that I believe have kind of shifted our business.
Oh, I love those. I like the fact that you're candid about, taking it personal. There's this perception with a lot of people that have yet to have the level of success that they want, to believe that everybody else that has made that level or achieved that level of success has not gone through some of those things. It's hard not to take some things personal when you've poured your heart and soul in it, right? Totally, and especially when my wife and I have invested almost $500,000 back into our business over, a 10-year period. And we're kind of like, what in the world, And then we just had to take it on the chin, suck it up, what did we learn, and move on. Yeah, and I've had days where, I didn't deliver to the level that I wanted, and it just hit me so hard that I just had to go to sleep. I was taking it so hard,
Yeah.
that I needed to just curl up in a ball and lick my wounds for a little while, and the rest and the next day brought new things to me. But what I love so much about that is you use that as an opportunity to get better. You got real with yourself.
Yep.
And you said, man, I'm going to get better. And I've gone through that same cycle where I've poured my heart and soul in something and I'm not getting the results I want, and it's just killing you. And you've got to turn it on yourself and say, what am I not doing right? And commit to getting better. That's a wonderful thing. And wow, those three things, the changing the way that you look at things as far as a content provider, I've gone through that same evolution myself. To where I'm a content provider, and for me, I don't need to monetize everything. For me, it's about just reaching and helping as many people. And I know that the same thing is true for you. And what happens is there's a form of serendipity that happens. And it's happened in your story that you've explained to where you end up getting connected with incredible people like this man that is your mentor that has shared these things. That's what happens when you constantly give and teach and all of these things. Great things start happening in ways that you could have never graphed out on a piece of paper.
I so believe that. You know why? One of the things we've started doing is we now have clients that say we dealt with 5 years ago, and they'll call us back to bring us in for some other work. And now we give it away to other people who maybe have not been doing what we've been doing as long or have, and we just refer it on to them. We just had a call last week to be a part of a huge 8-figure RFP. And in my heart of hearts, I said, you know what? This is not our lane. This is not our area of brilliance. And I told the person who was the main contractor, I said, here are 2 subcontractors that I know will do an amazing job for you. And I can't tell you how good it felt to make that introduction, to let it go, and to not worry if they're going to send me something on the back end. It was never about that. It was about what goes around comes around. And it just felt good to give it away, to refer it on, instead of trying to say, okay, how can I do this? How can I scale it? I was like, no, that's not our lane, and it's okay.
Right. Yeah. Good things come from that, and I know that to a lot of people that seems cliche or hokey, but it really does happen. It really does happen. You just need to be prolific, and you need to just give it without any conditions, and it comes back your way. It's just a matter of time. But I think the key part of this is being prolific about it, right?
Totally.
Hey, what book or program made an impact on you related to business that you'd recommend, and why would you recommend it?
Wow. Okay, so the book I really want people to get a hold of is a book called Practically Radical, and it's by Bill Taylor. Bill Taylor is the co-founder of Fast Company magazine, but what he did with Practically Radical, one of the statements he makes is that people can look at their industry and they sometimes see it the way they've always done it. But it's businesses that see something totally different that become the game changer in the industry.
Right.
And he introduces this term called vujade, which is, seeing things for the first time. And it's phenomenal. Great book.
I like it. I've never heard of that. I'm going to definitely add that to my list. Yeah. And so vujade, that's kind of the reverse of deja vu, right? Yeah.
And he talks about vujade in his book, Practically Radical.
Very cool. What's one of your favorite tools or pieces of technology that you've recently discovered, if any? And it doesn't have to be anything new, but something new to you that you'd recommend to other business owners, and why?
highly recommend Mobile Biz Academy, mobilebizacademy.com. And the best way to describe it, it's an iTunes for business leaders, small businesses who are saying, how do we get great content in an 8 to 10 minute format where you have world-class teachers on the edge of where things are going. So, for instance, they've got Dr. Jennifer Cornwaller, who teaches introverted leadership. You know, not every leader is an extrovert.
Right.
So as an introverted leader, how do you think about that? Mm-hmm. And she just walks you through, here are the how-to steps. mobilebizacademy.com.
Very cool. And now all of that is relegated to 10 minutes, you say?
Yeah, no more than 10 minutes. And it's an audio interview, kind of like what we're doing, and it's kind of like a give and take. So you don't have to like, oh my God, is this person just talking? Wah, wah, wah. No, it's an audio interview where she is being interviewed and asked questions, and she's just in the moment. And then what's cool about it, they have a 5-page PDF that you can download where you can go deeper into the content.
Very cool. What quote would best summarize your belief or your attitude in business?
Failure is not final. Failure is only feedback. And feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Amen to that. You know, how old are you, Simon?
45, 46 in a couple of weeks.
Wow, I'm 48, so I got you beat. but you know,
wise one.
Yeah, right. You know, we come from an era when failure was a bad thing, right?
Oh, totally.
You know, failure meant you were an idiot. Failure meant that you were less than. And failure now is just, test mode, right? You're testing and refining.
Yeah, totally. I was interviewing a guy for my last book, and his name is William Lazarus, and he has a motto where he teaches in his company, make mistakes faster, fail faster, let's get through it and move on. Right. I thought that was so cool. They even give out a failure award. Because he wants to encourage people to get out on the edge and try something, you know? Yeah.
Right. It's not that bad, you know, making little failures here and there. There's a couple that are brutal, that can be brutal. Right. But boy, the lessons, I really I didn't become a really great business owner or entrepreneur until I had my butt kicked. Super hard. You know, I was this boy wonder for the first 10, 15 years of business and really had some incredible successes. But I become a real rock star entrepreneur once I had my rear handed to me and thought that my life was over and had to completely build it back. I was lucky enough to build it all back in 18 months.
Wow.
And then I realized that I do have some superpowers, but I gained those through going through the fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
One final thing. Do you have any special superpowers that you can share with us?
You know what I think my superpower is realizing that I've got to build my life around who will be crying at my funeral. And for me, that's family. The man that I am today is because the woman who stood beside me, sometimes in front of me, who believed in this crazy journey, and our kids who, at the time when I started, Daniel was 4, Madison was 18 months, Daniel's now 15, Madison's 12, and I realized that that's where my power lies. A happy home, I believe, creates a happy business, that if you are really effective at home, you can be effective in business. Now, you have some people who dispel that, because you have a lot of people who've been, billionaires and have built big businesses, and they've gone through 3 or 4 divorces. And I, I'm not trying to judge anybody, but I know as it relates for me, it's just having that family unit intact works for me. Yeah,
I completely agree with you. Hey, how do people connect with you?
ShiftYourBrilliance.com. ShiftYourBrilliance.com. All of our information is there.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Remember that you can find all the links to the books and resources mentioned in the show, even a transcription in the show notes. Just go to the RockstarEntrepreneurNetwork.com. I think I put a "the" in there. Let me re-say that. Let me say that the proper way. RockstarEntrepreneurNetwork.com. Before I close the show today, my quote comes from me. And the quote reads, "Don't be afraid to stand for what you believe in, even if that means standing alone." This is Travis Lane Jenkins signing off for now. To your incredible success, my friend. Take care.